Hello, and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Sarasota. Whether you are observing Easter Sunday or Passover, we at the center extend our very sincere greetings for a joyous celebration. We're here to support you in finding a personal relationship with the God of your understanding and discovering what you already know. My name is Kathleen Frankert. I'm a licensed spiritual practitioner here at the center. I greet you today with Namaste. Namaste is the Sanskrit word that means the divinity in me recognizes and greets the divinity in you. Each week, we begin our time together by affirming our vision and mission statement. We do that to bring it to life for ourselves and for our spiritual community. The words can now be seen on your screen, and I invite you to join in reading them. Our revision is empowering spiritual growth as a loving, inclusive, worldwide community. And this is our mission. We teach science of mind principles and other life-affirming spiritual truths. We explore, we learn, we grow, we connect, honoring all paths to God. We offer in-person and online weekly services, classes, workshops, affirmative prayer support, and other spiritual tools. We create opportunities for joyful social connection, community outreach, and service. We celebrate the awakening of our innate spiritual magnificence. So now let's prepare for our time of prayer and meditation. I invite you to give yourself this gift of quiet contemplation and reflection. Allow your eyes to close as we turn within and take in this musical inspiration to calm your mind, as our music director, Bob Teesdale, shares one of his original songs, My Sacred Space.
This is my sacred space, where I'm peaceful and free, like the arms of a warm embrace. I feel love surrounding me when I breathe into my sacred space. There's no place I'd rather be in the arms of a warm embrace. I feel love surrounding me, and I hear music that's yet to be written, songs that have yet to be sung, realities yet to be realized, me that I've yet to become. This is my sacred space. I am peaceful and free in the arms of a warm embrace. I feel God's love surrounding me. And I hear music that's yet to be written, songs that have yet to be sung. Realities yet to be realized. The me that I've yet to become. This is my sacred space, where I'm peaceful and I'm free. In the arms of a warm embrace, I feel God's love surrounding me. In the arms of a warm embrace, I feel God's love surrounding me.
In this moment, we are reminded that sacred space, like the infinite power and presence of God, is everywhere, in everything. As close as the breath, Spirit's presence enfolds and supports us in its tender embrace. I know this infinite source of health, wholeness, prosperity, love, and joy creates out of itself even more of life's good. Everything comes into being out of this original source, this eternal, generous supply. We are reminded that even in the dark days of winter, spring persists. Likewise, in faith, we can know any time we feel separate from our good, lost, or confused, the good of God persists. Just as the new life of spring reaches out of itself to express its majesty, so does Spirit generate a divine flow of support for any need. Feel this benign activity for good enfolding, lifting, and supporting you. In faith, know that Spirit's resources are without limits, and that this quiet contemplation of God's grace is already bringing about a shift for healing, resolution, and above all, love. I speak this word for me and all hearing these words. It is done unto us as we believe. And we believe that all is good, for all is God. For this realization, I am so grateful. In full faith and expectancy of this good now unfolding, I declare this to be so. And so it is. Today, our founding minister and spiritual director, Reverend Karen Wolfson, is taking the day off. So it is my pleasure to bring back one of our favorite guest speakers, Reverend Dr. Dennis Merritt Jones. Dr. Dennis is a noted speaker, author, and facilitator. His many books include How to Speak the Science of Mind, The Art of Abundance, The Art of Being, The Art of Uncertainty, and Your Redefining Moments. He is the founding minister and former spiritual director of the Center for Spiritual Living in Simi Valley, California for 23 years. Dr. Dennis's talk today is entitled Mastering the Mystical Power of Surrender. Before we hear from Dr. Dennis, it's my pleasure to again introduce Bob Teesdale to present a Beatles classic written by George Harrison, Here Comes the Sun. Welcome, Bob.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Hey darling, the smiles returning to the faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. Hey darling, it feels like ice is slowly melting. There darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. It's alright.
Hey, my friends at the Sarasota Center for Spiritual Living. Thank you, Reverend Karen, for inviting me to share some ideas this morning regarding Easter. You know, it was Easter Sunday in 1985 when I founded my own church in Simi Valley, California. It's a long time ago, but Easter has always been a significant, not just a holiday, but an observation for me because it marks my own coming out to a deeper awareness of my spiritual nature. And that's what I want to share with you this morning. I want to invite each of you to personalize this idea of what Easter can be for us. And what I know is this, is that before we can honor and celebrate and experience the Easter experience with the resurrection and all, we first have to be able to see what happened that led up to the Easter experience, which was the evening before he was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane. And it's there, you know, it's written that the Garden of Gethsemane was the place where Jesus knew he had his final opportunity to dance, to intermingle his human nature with his Christ nature, and to let the Christ nature lead the way. And as he went to the Garden of Gethsemane, he knew this was the struggle. And he said in his prayer, he said, Father, if thou are willing, remove this cup from me. You know, I'm not ready to drink this poison yet. Not my will, but yours be done. In other words, the great teacher, that's Luke 22, by the way, the great teacher knew that this was his time. He needed to go through the Garden of Gethsemane to prove what he came to prove, which was that life was eternal. And we needed the Garden of Gethsemane experience to set the whole thing up. And as you know, one of my friends once said, without a betrayal, there could be no resurrection. And so I invite you to personalize this concept in your own life and see where maybe there's been betrayal in your life, and see where that opportunity to be resurrected or to transcend that betrayal also lies in this story for you. You know, in New Thought, we look at the beloved teacher Jesus, you know, as the great example rather than the great exception. This idea in and of itself is profoundly controversial because what it means, literally, listen to this, what it means is that what Jesus did, we can do. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. now the question is this metaphor or is it literal? In New Thought, we actually teach that it's both. It's metaphor, but it can also be looked at literally. Holmes said it so beautifully. He said, our goal is not to prove that Jesus was the only Son of God. It's to prove that every human being is a son or daughter of God. That's a profound thought. So that's where we're going this morning in this conversation. So is the story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane and the ultimate resurrection literal, or is it metaphoric? Is it idioms? And I would say we'll have to look at the whole story, and then you can decide for yourself. In order to make sense of the story, we have to be able to examine the great teacher's humanity as well as his divinity. And that's where the rubber meets the road. What did he know that we don't know? What did he embody as the truth? A truth that perhaps which we have not yet arrived, because if we are able to supposedly do everything that he does or did, we have more to learn, don't we? And I guess the question is, are you willing to approach this idea that there's more to know? And in the process of knowing that there's more to know, we unfold it in front of us in a way that makes the next part of our own personal evolution happen. So as we enter the Easter experience today, we shall be examining some of the questions that I've just posed to you from a metaphysical perspective, science of mind perspective, and it all begins with Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, where an amazing transformation begins to take place. I think that this experience that Jesus had in the Garden of Gethsemane, just prior to his arrest and subsequent crucifixion, was his true defining moment. It's that one moment that he knew where he had a chance to see. I don't think he went into the Garden of Gethsemane as Christ Jesus. I think he came out of it as Christ Jesus. That's a profound thought when you think about it, that we can enter an experience differently than we exit it. And that's the whole, I think, metaphor of the story, is we each have a chance to evolve and transcend the conditions that face us and cause us to feel fear at times. This was the moment he actually became the Christ, as his egoic self finally and totally gave way to the pure spiritual essence that he knew was there. And this happens in the Garden of Gethsemane, which is located on Mount Olive. In other words, the Garden of Gethsemane was in the center of an olive grove. People are maybe not aware of that. It's an olive grove. And it's interesting that the word Gethsemane means olive press or oil press. And so that's metaphoric. Keep in mind that many things in this story are metaphor and idioms that we get a chance to see how they apply in our own lives. The Gethsemane, an oil press, separates the essence, the juice, from the form. And that's exactly what, when we go through our spiritual purifications, we become pressed. The essence of who we really are rises, and the hulk of what we weren't or aren't is discarded, emotionally, physically, metaphorically, spiritually, and every other way. The divine surrender is what Holmes referred to it as, and he says that the divine surrender is made when the lower essence of who we are gives way to the higher essence of who we are. So the question this morning is, where in your life are you willing to transcend, to set aside the lower to honor the higher? The lower vibration is usually attached to something that is drawing us, pulling us down rather than lifting us up. Jesus had made the divine surrender, fully giving his spirit, mind, and body back to God in the Garden of Gethsemane. This is in this surrender, and any other any sense of separation he had from God was healed at that moment in this divine surrender. Up until that point, the human Jesus was wrestling with the Christ Jesus, did not want to let go of that lower nature in order for the higher to evolve. Why is that? Well, he was fearful. It proved his human nature. It proved that Jesus was a human being as well as he was a spiritual being. I mean, that's where fear was leading the conversation, And in Luke 22, it says, "And being in agony, he was praying fervently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling upon the ground." Now, that's an idiom, isn't it? Did he sweat drops of blood? Maybe, maybe not. But the idiom is that he is scared spitless. The idiom is that sweating drops of blood means I'm scared. Drops of blood is a metaphor depicting the fact that he was deeply enmeshed in fear. And this demonstrates his humanity. He was scared spitless. Have you ever been deeply enmeshed in fear? Scared spitless? I have. I'm sure you have too. Maybe not to the degree that we're facing our ultimate demise, but every day is our Garden of Gethsemane. And that, I think, is one of the points that we want to really lean into here. Who can blame him, for that moment of consternation? Who can blame him for that? Because he knew what he was about to go through. He also knew he had to set up the scenario to go through it in order to prove his ultimate point, which was that life is eternal. This was an entirely understandable reason for any human being to have, but this also is where the human gave way to the divine in the teacher Jesus. And if we read the rest of the story, it's a very important aspect here. We'll notice that from the moment Jesus made the divine surrender through the moment of his crucifixion, fear and anxiety and uncertainty were no longer part of his reality. He had transcended that. Even as he stood before Pilate, when asked if he was the king of the Jews, his response wasn't one of someone coming from fear. He calmly said, "It is done as you say. It is as you say, Pilate." He didn't argue. You know why? Because Jesus knew who he was. He didn't have to defend it. Once we know who we are, we don't have to defend it to anybody. And there's another one of the metaphors for Easter right there. So he had no need to argue or deny or defend himself, because his defining moment of his true identity had been realized, and he knew exactly who he came here to be. Who Pilate said he was didn't matter a hoot, didn't matter a rip. So the point is that from that place of divine knowing, only peace remained as his experience. Take a deep breath. Have you been in your own Garden of Gethsemane lately, where you get a chance to demonstrate some of these principles, that there's a place within us that knows better than we do what to do and how to get us through it? See, that's what's important, the personal application of the Easter story. If we can't find how it applies in our own daily lives every day, it's for naught. The same for Christmas and all the other great holidays and stories in the Scriptures. Every character in the Scriptures represents some aspect of our own being. We each have the aspect of the Christ nature within us. But guess what? We also have the Judas nature. There's a place within us that is ripe for betraying the higher self. It's called the ego. But this is where the rubber meets the road, my friends. And this is I love the concept of I'll meet you in the garden, because that's where it all happens, in the garden. The Garden of Gethsemane sets up the drama, the Easter drama itself. I don't know about you, but I've had my own Garden of Gethsemane moments more than once. Perhaps not to the point where I was facing imminent physical death, but who says we have to be facing loss in our lives, or loss of our lives, in order to be sweating, metaphorically, drops of blood? I think you all can relate to a place in your own life where you have sweat drops of blood. Not literally, but metaphorically. You were in deep, 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 deep consternation and fear. And those are the moments that we need to take a breath and say, "Not my will, Father, but thine." Easier said than done. Now, these are our defining moments that come when everything is, when everything's blue skies and green lights. We don't really think about our redefining moments, but it's in those moments when we're being pressed and squeezed until some other higher form of essence reveals itself. That's when we know that we're in our own Garden of Gethsemane. So the key to remember is this: whenever we're overcome with fear, it's always attached to a concern of loss of something at some level. All fear is attached to a concern of loss. Perhaps it's a loss of your life. Perhaps it's a loss of friendship or a relationship, a job, a lifestyle, a home, a bank account. It doesn't always have to be a physical loss. It can be the death of many things in our lives, but fear is attached to loss of concern of some sort. So maybe, just take a moment and think, where in your life today is fear raising its snarly little head, and see if you can see what it's attached to. What is it that you're fearful of losing? And that's really the Easter story, is that there's nothing to lose. We just have to, it's about transition. The universe is made no no room for death, only transformation. That's an important thing to remember. Not just our physical, but everything in our lives as well can be metaphorically seen that way. Whatever the perceived loss, making the divine surrender will always be the answer. Let me repeat that. Whatever the perceived loss, making the divine surrender will always be the answer. Not my will, Father, but thine be done. Whew. I think a lot of people have fear letting go of the controls. See if you relate with that. Why do we fear God's will? Why do we fear? Do we think that God has something in mind for us that's less than what we have in mind for ourselves? Well, if we're coming from the ego, maybe so. But why do we fear God's will? Think about that just for a minute. It's if we fear God's will, we have God in the wrong definition in our minds, because God's will is not, it's what it means is we don't trust the life process and how the universe operates, divine surrender. What it means is that we need to let go of our need to control the universe, doesn't it? To lean on or open to the will of God. What is the will of God? I think that's a hell of a great experience, or a great question to sit with and ask ourselves, perhaps in meditation. What is God's will for you? What is God's will? What was God's will for Jesus? What was God's will for any of its living creations? And you notice I refer to God as it, not he, because I think it's beyond gender. We've got to remember this. It's only the universe operates on this principle of divine expansion. Everything's pushing out. God's will can be nothing more than to seek a larger part of itself in and through your experience on the planet. That's God's will, to express itself in you and through you in ways that you have not yet considered. And until you reach that Christ state of mind, maybe you won't. Because we're so attached to the material things, including form, of every kind. It's only through when we come to the awareness that infinite intelligence is seeking one thing. The will of the universe is to have a larger expression through each of our lives, to reveal more of its divine nature. In the process, we may have to make peace with the fact that something that we've been clinging to has to be released. Woo! Take a deep breath. There it is. God's will is I want you to grow, to unfold, to be more tomorrow than you were yesterday. That's the will of God. And the question is, what are we holding on to that's keeping us from fully embracing that? This is the divine surrender, to let go of whatever that looks like, what must be released. And this can be a very personal and difficult thing to do, but it's how we make our way for the greater expression of the divine through us and as us. Our true defining moment, then, is when we open up to this awareness and give way to it. Your defining moment is when you become aware of this truth we've been talking about, and you give way to it. You invite it to have a way in and through you. And I think that, we all do that differently. We can make peace with it differently, but we know when we've had that transformational experience, because we're not the same. I know I'm not the same as I was 38 years ago when I founded that church on Easter Sunday of 1985. How infinite intelligence expresses itself in me and through me is profoundly different than it was then. And I think that's, to a large degree, I've been willing to follow the faith of my unfolding sense of what God's will was for me. And that's always to be more tomorrow than I was yesterday. And we have to each personalize to see how that applies in our lives. How can you be more tomorrow than you were yesterday? That's what God's will is. Not more necessarily materially, but more spiritually, to be more emotionally unfolded, to be more engaged with the world in a way that makes who you are stand out in a way that is driven by spirit and not ego. Boy. At that moment, as Jesus did, when we do that, we will know ourselves as God moving through the human experience, regardless of how dark it may appear to be in that moment. So, this is my call to action to you today, my friends. And And in a couple of minutes, Bob is going to sing a song for you that really relates to this. The next time you're having a Garden of Gethsemane experience, try to remember that it could be your defining or redefining moment to reveal who you came here to be. Who you came here to be, to reveal yourself to the world. And this I do know, Easter is meaningless unless we find a way to make it relevant in our lives today. When we do, the resurrection is a given. And it's not necessarily a resurrection of just spirit, but also of our lives in general, a new perception of how life presents itself to us. We can be resurrected every day with a new perception of life. What would Paul say? I die daily. The stories through the scriptures are riddled with implications that we're not alone, that infinite intelligence knows what it's doing, and that our job is to open up, to breathe, ask the question, what's next for me? And then say, it is not my will, Father, but thine, and listen to that divine guidance. In order to do that, we have to come to each of us have to come to our own Garden of Gethsemane. And so Bob is going to sing a song for you now that relates to this idea. Imagine Jesus sitting in the Garden of Gethsemane, having this conversation with his higher self, with the God of his own being, and you'll know what I'm trying to say in this moment. Not my will, Father, but thine. Thy will be done. That's a profound and spiritual realization we can have not just on Easter Sunday, but every day of the year. Wake up, put your feet on the floor, and say, not my will, Father, but thine. What is it that I must do or can do? What can I be led to do this day that makes me a better human being, a more connected spiritual being, and makes this planet that I live on a more habitable place for everyone? So until I see you next time, know you're blessed, happy Easter, and be at peace with the idea that who you have come here to be is still unfolding even in this moment, and it's marvelous. Happy Easter, my friends, and happy Easter to the Sarasota Center for Spiritual Living. You guys are all quite wonderful. Peace.
Here I am, Lord, use me, guide me, fill me, take me, lead me by your will. Here I am, Lord, ready to follow, to serve you, to love you, to be you in this world. Thy will is done through me this day. Thy will is done through me this day. Lord, you call, I answer. I'm open, I listen. I hear you, I feel you moving me. Lord, I come closer, humble, surrendered, lifted, committed to your plan. Thy will is this day. Thy will is done through me this day. Thy will is done through me this day. Thy will is done through me this day. Well, here I am, Lord. Here I am, Lord. Here I am. Lord, I come.
Thanks, Bob. That was a perfect song to bring home the message. We are so blessed to enjoy your talents every week. Dr. Dennis, you have brought us such a wonderful message about the symbolism of spring and our own opportunity for transformation through transition. Thank you so much for joining us today. At the Center for Spiritual Living Sarasota, we're pleased to support you with prayer, inspiration, encouragement, and opportunities for virtual community and connection. Now it's time to share our offering that supports our ability to continue to be here for you. There are 3 easy ways to contribute. On your screen, you'll see our website where you can select the donate button, which allows you to contribute via PayPal or credit card, or mail our check to our address shown here. Or you can arrange automatic contributions through your own online banking. The website address is www.cslsarasota.com. Now I invite you to take your virtual gift in your hand, place it over your heart, blessing it as you share it. And know this with me: my gift goes forth to heal, to bless, and to prosper. And the divine flow returns it to me multiplied abundantly. And now let us declare together our offering affirmation. The words are on your screen. I give thanks that I may share of my good, my love, and my support. Thank you so much. Do you have a prayer request? I invite you to visit the website and click on the green prayer request button, where you may seek prayer support for any intention you have or any challenge you may be facing. We have 5 licensed spiritual practitioners: Ron Frost, Jim Grove, Nicole Leeds, Sean Scanlon, and me, who are available to know and affirm spiritual truth with and for you. Our practitioners are also available by appointment for 1-hour spiritual coaching sessions. These sessions offer the opportunity to explore a deeper understanding and practical application of the spiritual truth in the midst of your problem or challenging issue. For more information, check out their page at our website by selecting the Staff tab on the left. Also on our website, you can sign up to receive our weekly email newsletter, or check out our Facebook page for posts about upcoming events, and find past services and videos on our YouTube channel. I have a couple of announcements to share today. Mark your calendars now and join us for brunch at 11:30 a.m. Sunday, May 22nd at the beautiful Sarasota Yacht Club. This will be a wonderful time to reconnect with old friends and meet new ones as we enjoy food, fellowship, and the incomparable view of Sarasota Bay. We hope to see you there. And are you looking for a way to connect with this community between Sundays? Then I invite you to our Spiritual Living Circle, which meets via Zoom every Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. Each week, we have a lively discussion facilitated by licensed spiritual practitioner Jim Grove about an article from this month's Science of Mind magazine. The article discussed this week is titled Autism, Raising Acceptance and Consciousness. If you're not currently on the email list, please drop Jim a note at the address shown here, and he will send you the Zoom link, article, and discussion guide. These circles are open to all at no charge. It's a great way to have a midweek faith lift. Hope to see you there. And now, as we conclude our sacred time together, let us do so with the intention to live in light, love, health, and peace. I invite you to listen or join in singing our closing song, Let There Be Peace on Earth. Thanks so much for being with us.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be with God our Creator. We are family. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every breath I take, let this be my solemn vow to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternal.